You're listening to Trek FM.
Want to join in the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode? Join the Babel Conference, our listeners' discussion group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
This is Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan, and you're listening to the 602 Club.
There was a little bar in Mill Valley where all the Starfleet trainees used to go.
The 602 Club.
You know it.
I was there more times than I can remember.
Please, slow down, Diana.
That's your leader? How could he say that, believe that? And you, was your duty to simply give them a book?
No.
You didn't stand your ground, you didn't fight.
Because there was no chance of changing his mind.
This is Ares, and he's not going to allow a negotiation or a surrender. The millions of people you talked about, they will die.
We are going anyway.
You mean you were lying?
I'm a spy, that's what I do.
How do I know you're not lying to me right now?
I am taking you to the front. We are probably gonna die. This is a terrible idea. We're gonna need reinforcements.
Welcome, everybody, to the 602 Club. I'm so excited to be here. Hopefully, you're getting this transmission. We are broadcasting from Themyscira or Paradise Island, whichever one's easier for you. And I don't know if this gets out through the barrier. Thank you for inviting us too, Bethany. It was really nice for you to say that we could come and visit you.
Well, thanks. And thanks for having me on the show, Matt.
Absolutely. So that's Bethany Blanton. She's going to be joining us to talk about Wonder Woman. And, I'm really excited to have you here, Richard, because, I know that you have a daughter. And so I saw so many mothers and fathers with their daughters at the movie theater. So I think it's going to be really fun to have a dad on the show to kind of talk about your experience of getting to share Wonder Woman with him. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, excellent. Well, before we dive in, just a quick reminder, you can find all the shows that we do here at Trek FM on iTunes, over at itunes.com/Trek FM, or they call it Apple Podcasts now, so make sure you check that out. We're a featured provider there, and we have so many different shows for you to check out. And while you're there, I'd love for you to give us a star rating and review. And this is the end of our review contest that we did for some very exclusive Funko Pop merchandise that only came from them. It's all Guardians of the Galaxy related, and so we're picking a brand new winner in that contest. And so I am got all the reviews here, and I'm so excited that Myopic Eagle has won the review contest. So thank you so much for your review. Please go over to trek.fm/contact, choose the 602 Club, send me your information so I can send you what you've won. I'm very excited to send it to you. And I appreciate all the reviews that we got. We got a lot of great new reviews, and they said that the 602 Club is fun and chill and one of the finest podcasts that they've come across. I appreciate that. That means a lot. So, of course, you can find us on Twitter, Trek FM, Facebook, facebook.com/Trek FM. And I know Richard, Bethany, and I all kind of lurk around the Babel Conference, which is our listeners-only discussion group. You can join us there. If you're on Facebook, just type Babel into the search field. Or if you're on our website at trek.fm, just hit discussion on the menu bar. It'll bring you over there. We'll let you in the group, and you can enjoy talking with all of the other listeners of the group about all the different shows and all the other things that we're talking about here on the network.
Yeah, I do. I lurk there quite frequently.
Yeah. I like the thought of us just kind of all. I feel like I'm like the really tall grass, and you can just see my eyes above it. Like I'm just watching what happens, and then kind of go back down. Anyway, that's creepy. Let's get to our expectations about this film, because I think Wonder Woman had a lot of expectations riding on it in a lot of ways. And I don't really necessarily think we need to dive into everything that's been said about DC films and blah, blah, blah. But I'm just kind of wondering what your personal expectations for the movie were going in. I mean, Wonder Woman, been around for over 75 years now. I mean, huge character. And so, Bethany, for you, kind of going into this movie, did you have any expectations for it? And was there anything you were kind of hoping for before you saw the movie?
I was hoping that it would be good. I might fall a little bit into the cliche here, but as far as superhero movies goes, I was not a huge fan of Batman v Superman. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, one of my favorite superhero movies. So I was a little bit hoping that they would come forth with a character who to me would be very appealing in terms of story and character, because Batman versus Superman was not that way for me necessarily. So I was trying not to get my hopes up, and that paired with an insane schedule of my own, also paired with the fact that I didn't particularly grow up with Wonder Woman as a key character or hero of my childhood, meant that I didn't actually pay a lot of attention until maybe the first or second trailer came out, at which point I started to have that sort of a secret hoping that it will be really good and kind of looking forward to it now. And then another trailer comes out and I'm like, ooh, this is exciting, and wow, the history behind this character, and finally getting her own movie after all of these years. And so by the time I got to the movie itself, my expectations were fairly high, but at the same time I didn't know exactly what to expect, which for me is the perfect way to go into a film.
Yeah, I know. I think that I like that. I like that a lot. And I think it's always kind of good to go into any film. You're always hoping that you paid good money. You want it to be good. I think that's just a normal, great expectation to have. So I love that. What about you, Richard?
Well, I will tell you what I told my daughter, because she actually went there with me to see Wonder Woman, along with my fiance Jennifer. I told her that the first exposure I ever got with Wonder Woman was the DC cartoon. I think it was
Justice League.
Thank you, Justice League.
It was Super Friends. Okay.
It was on the CW or whatever it was on Channel 20 or
great
whatever.
Show.
It was.
I've been watching through it on Netflix.
Yeah. That was my first exposure of Wonder Woman, and that was like when I was, I don't know, in high school or something like that, maybe a little bit before high school or something like that. And I told, she asked me what was this movie about, and based on what I remembered from that TV show was that Wonder Woman is a character who stands for justice and truth and battles injustice, and that's what she does. And she's friends with Superman and Batman. So she loves Superman, she loves Batman, because she's got a T-shirt for each of them. And now she has a Wonder Woman T-shirt now. I had very high expectations because I did know a lot about Wonder Woman, and I was vested in the story. Thanks to the cartoon show. On top of that, what I've read since then. Yeah, so I had high expectations, but I knew more than likely it probably wouldn't be on the same line as the comic book. So I wasn't trying not to set that bar too high. So funny enough, here she is.
Aw. So, hey, how are you?
Say hi, Eva.
Hi.
Hello.
That's awesome. Oh, so good to see you. One of the things that I really like about that, and I'm in a similar situation as you, I had seen a few, not a lot, because I'm a little too young to have grown up with Wonder Woman, the TV show. I've seen a few episodes here and there, so Wonder Woman! Yeah, I mean, I know the theme song and her spinning and all that kind of stuff, and obviously know Linda Carter. If you've been in geekdom long enough, you know who that is as Wonder Woman. But I'm right there with you that really my exposure to Wonder Woman came through the Justice League cartoon and then Justice League Unlimited. And, of course, when they decided, DC Comics decided over 6 or 7 years ago. It's been a long time now. To reboot into the New 52, I specifically started reading all the Wonder Woman comics, and that is a fantastic run of Wonder Woman. Brian Azzarello did a really great job of doing the unexpected with Wonder Woman and her storyline and her origin, which is actually one of the things that they use as a basis for her origin in this movie. But like you, Richard, reading a lot of the comics and then having gone back and read some of the older stuff, I always have to remember that comic book movies are their own thing. They're going to synthesize and syncretize a lot of different parts of the comics to make their vision. And a lot of ways, they kind of simplify things too. And that's not always bad because you can only do so much in a 2.5 hour movie anyway. So my expectation is that it would be good. I'm unabashedly a huge fan of Batman v Superman. It's my favorite superhero movie still. I love Man of Steel. Suicide Squad, good, not great, but I still enjoy it. And, I love a ton of the Marvel movies too. I mean, Captain America is one of my favorite superheroes of all time as well. So, I mean, it's not as though I'm just only on one side. Guardians for me, Guardians 2, I liked it more than Guardians 1. So, hey, whatever... you never know what you're going to get, and so I always hope it's going to be good. But I wanted to talk about this right at the opening with you guys because I really do think that there's a heart to this movie, and I think it's Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. And I think both of these characters and their portrayal are pretty much what make the movie in a lot of ways. I would argue that Gal is to Wonder Woman what Christopher Reeve has been to Superman. So I'm wondering what you guys think about both of them, and just the way that they portray the characters and what they do for the movie.
I remember back when she was first cast, the outrage on social media of people saying that she was too skinny, that she didn't fit the look of Wonder Woman, that she wouldn't do well in the role, and so on and so forth. And of course, those who came to her defense and, were basically like, don't skinny shame people and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, man, I'm glad the internet didn't make that decision because she did astonishingly well in the role, and her character really came out and flourished in a way with a rich story and a believable, flawed character with superpowers, but not an anti-hero, because we seem to get a lot of heroes who are kind of lean towards the Captain America end of things, or they lean towards the Iron Man or possibly Batman end of things, where they're heroes, or they're heroes that are burdened, or they're anti-heroes like Deadpool. And I like that Wonder Woman is a hero who has flaws, but it isn't necessarily going around terribly haunted by her past. Everybody has issues with the past, but she's not another Batman. and I don't know how they struck that balance. It was a perfect balance.
I saw the same thing about the whole shaming thing, and I'm in agreement with you, Bethany. That I'm glad that the internet also did not make that decision either. Like I said, I had high expectations, and I wasn't trying to like rip it apart in my mind, because I just watched it, took it for what it was. Obviously, I didn't want to like be like, well, this is what they said in the original, and this is what we're doing in the middle, or this is what we're doing in the movie, and I don't, and this is not right. No. That's not what I wanted to do because that's what I did with the earlier MCU movies, and I stopped doing that. But like in this one, I thought she was a decent actress in this. I didn't think she was over the top. I've been reading. I read a lot of the reviews, and it was very difficult to find because what I usually do when I look at movies before I watch it, I usually try to find the ones that criticize the movie quite a bit. and there was like maybe one or two that I found, and I mean, Chris Pine is Chris Pine. I love the dude. The dude he's a great actor. He sold it for me for this whole movie. I wish they would have given her more to work with for Gal, because, all right, I'm just gonna say it. To me, it was Return of the Jedi meets Baywatch meets Tarzan, but if Tarzan was a woman. That's how I saw it, because I was like, there were lots of slow motion that I saw with Baywatch. Not the most intelligent. I'm not saying that she's not an intelligent woman, but I mean, through the character, through the whole entire movie, that's what I know. She's not experienced and never seen the real world, but like, it's like, oh crap.
Well, I think I think that I mean, I get what you're saying, but I actually think you're criticizing something that is a actual part of her character. Is she is naive. I mean, she's been divorced from the real world. She's grown up on Paradise Island. That's why they call it that. It's pretty much as perfect as it gets. You know, she has her perception of the world is so simple. There's good, there's bad, and that's it, you know. And when she gets into the world, she has to become acclimated to the complexities of our world, and it does take her a lot of time. And so, honestly, I loved the fact that she comes into the world very innocent, and that changes. I mean, because her arc is to go from somebody who is very innocent, wants to change the world, thinks she can make it better by only killing one person, and everything's going to be fine, to being a person that at the end of this hangs up the lasso for over 100 years until what we see in Batman v Superman. So, I mean, she comes out of this kind of damaged. Like, she comes out of this somebody who doesn't just stay the hero until quite some time later on. So this has a huge impact on her. So I think kind of, I don't know if I would criticize her for playing it with a naivety, because I think that's on purpose, because that's who the character is, you know. Like, she thinks, you know, war is kind of this glorious thing, and what she finds out is it's, you know, like, nothing is as good as she thought it was. In fact, it's a lot worse, you know, like, and that takes her time to figure out. You see what I'm saying?
I do, but I know where you're coming from, but I mean, I have a lot more to counter for that, but I'm not going to.
No, go for it. Come on, bring it.
I'm just saying, like, okay, so if we're gonna go off of like Greek mythology and Greek culture and whatnot, they knew all about politics within governments, within military, within even
right,
man
but
itself.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about what they give us in the movie.
Yes.
About Diana.
Right. No.
On the world that she grows up in, and she grows up in a very sheltered, very contained world, and when she gets to the real world, I think it slaps her in the face.
Maybe she should have not.
I mean, I don't want to say it, but I think you're really wrong here, Richard. I think you missed kind of the point of the whole movie.
No, I got the whole point of the movie.
Her...
No, I'm just saying, like, after the fact, after I watched the movie, that's when I started really thinking about certain pieces of the movie. I got the movie. I'm just saying, like, when I started really thinking about it and really looking at the pieces that I was watching, that's when I started tearing it apart. And it went from, I mean, don't get me wrong.
But I mean, if you understand where she's coming from and all that, I don't understand what you're tearing apart. That's what I'm not getting. Like, I don't understand why you would tear it apart, because I feel like the thematic elements for Diana are pretty well laid out, and make sense for what they give us for this version of Diana, Themyscira, the world, how she's been brought up. I mean, she's kind of the hunky-dory, like, gee golly, go get 'em hero that gets slapped in the face with the real world. I mean, that to me, that seems like that's the arc for the character. So the way Gal plays it, I think, is kind of perfect, because she just thinks, hey, I'm going to kill Ares and it'll all be great. Like, I mean, if they put like a little like ding, you know, like with her smile, that's kind of who she is at the beginning. And at the end, she is a completely different person. Like, she has been utterly changed forever. So much so that she will spend 100 years not being a hero.
Well, and if you think about it, in many ways, her story is similar to Captain America's in the sense that they both have a personality of they want to see what's good in the world. They want to see good things happen, and they want to believe in the good of the world. And so it is both sweet and endearing, while at the same time winds up being a flaw for both of them, because for both of them, they fail to see some of the well, let's say that they both fail to see some of the reality that's around them. But for Diana, it's even more pronounced because she's grown up in seclusion in this society where her mother specifically, who's the frickin' queen, is like, we will not teach her about war. I don't want you to train her. You know, we want to keep all of the bad stuff away. We're going to try to hide her and keep her from knowing as much as possible about who she is and her background and all of this other stuff. And so let's just tell her some somewhat altered versions of these fairy tales, and then eventually gives into training her. And Diana gets trained by somebody who loves to fight, who talks about the glories of war. I mean, her aunt fights and dies with a smile on her face. And Diana is not that person. She's not the person to fight with a smile on her face. She's the person who will be a very determined fighter and a defender of the weak and a defender of justice. But I don't think at her heart she's someone who actually likes fighting. And so I think it makes perfect sense to see her character go from somebody who was very selectively told the truth, very intentionally and carefully sheltered from multiple things, to grow into a young adult who thinks she knows a lot because she's read certain items, but doesn't realize what she doesn't know, which is all of these other things that her entire society has been keeping from her. Because when you have a queen for a mother, I mean, you can pretty much dictate how she grows up and what she knows and doesn't know.
Well, that was something, I mean, for me watching it, and I was thinking about this, like if I was a parent, and this I thought was interesting, Richard, was this the whole idea of how much is hidden from Diana, how much she doesn't know about what she doesn't know. And she doesn't realize that until she begins to get to the war. And I think that's that, you know, like, she thinks of war like, Bethany, you were saying, in Antiope's thought process, which is it's glorious, you know, and then they are walking to that ship and she's seeing all these broken men of different ages walk past her, and it's beginning to dawn on her, this is not what she thought it was. Like, and it kind of made me think of like the whole idea of like, how sheltered do we keep our kids? Like, you know, do we keep them completely immune to the rest of the world, or do we slowly begin to allow them to see the reality out there instead of just the fairy tale? And Diana starts off with the fairy tale and ends up with the reality, and that's a big character arc to kind of, I think, move through in the story. And it is very different than most of the other origin stories for Diana. The only one that I can think of where is actually the new Rebirth storyline is much closer to this version of Diana. She's much more innocent when she comes to the world of man than I had ever seen her before. So I thought that was just an interesting thing, and I don't know, it works for me.
I got nothing on that one.
Well, and I think what's great is that they work well together. Like, I think Gal and Chris, I think, work really well together, and I believe them as a couple. I think that was the thing too, that like them working together and finding a way to learn from each other, I thought was really nice. And it kind of, to me, those two characters were the heart and soul of the movie, but it also had a lot to, I think, just say about what true equality is. Like, he respects her for what she can do. She respects him for what he can do for most of the movie until they kind of have their spat and then they come back together. But, I just like when they're, they've liberated that village and he says to her, you did this. And she says, no, we did. Like, it was about them doing it together, her and the rest of the men. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a really great statement for the film, that it wasn't just about Wonder Woman, but it was about her involving the other people around her, and mostly, Chris Pine's character, Steve Trevor, which he's dreamy.
Okay.
I mean, come on, he is.
I don't know about that far, but I like him, but not that far.
Well, I really liked their chemistry together. So, we have a lot of other characters in the cast, and I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the ones that stood out to you the most. I mean, we've got Robin Wright's Antiope, we have Connie Nielsen's Queen Hippolyta, we have Etta Candy, Lucy Davis. I mean, there's so many fun, great characters in this movie. So what are the ones, because I don't think we can sit around and talk about them all, it would just take too long, but what were the ones that really stood out to you that you liked the most?
I really liked Etta Candy. I really like her. I mean, that was probably one. Besides Chris Pine, obviously, besides the main characters, but like, she was great. I loved it. I mean, it was like, you see Chris Pine's character. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Sort of thing. And then you see Etta Candy. Just like it's like, oh yeah, whatever, basically jokes it off and basically says the same thing as him, but in a joking manner. And I love the humor when she's involved. It's just great. It's great. I loved her in the trailers, and I'm glad that I didn't see everything in the trailers that are, at least there was some new stuff. But yeah, it was she's one of my favorite characters, secondary from the main. So.
She is hilarious and adorable at the same time. You want someone like that in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
A secretary?
No. just a sidekick. That's like that.
Yeah, I don't approve of slavery.
What's funny is that she, her getting to run the mission is actually something that's happened straight out of Rebirth. In a completely different way, obviously. But I loved that she kind of gets more and more responsibility as the film goes on. And she is a phenomenal character. And Lucy Davis was in the British version of The Office. And she played the Pam character, whose name was Dawn. She's wonderful and very funny. So I agree with you both. She's just awesome in this film. And I agree with you too, Richard. I'm so glad that all her funny lines were not in the trailers, because it gave you like things to look forward to that you hadn't seen at all. That was and they actually did that a lot with this movie. There were a lot of things that they didn't show you, which was great, because it for a lot of people there were some big surprises in this movie.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was, for me, it was predictable, except for the very, very end of who Ares was. But otherwise, yeah, it was kind of predictable for me for most of it. Not all of it, but most of it.
Yeah, well, we'll get there, because that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
I've heard from multiple people that they were shocked by the Ares reveal. But
yeah,
that was actually, well, I guess we'll come to that.
Yeah.
But I suppose, to get a little bit more back on topic, I really liked the Great General, and I always consistently mispronounce her name. So Matt, Antiope. Okay, are you sure you're pronouncing it correctly?
I am.
Okay, Antiope. I'll take your word for it. Just.
It sounds different coming from Gal Gadot's mouth.
It does. It really does. Yes, and I'll completely blame it on her for ever mispronouncing it. So Antiope, Man, what an amazing character. Talk about somebody who she's definitely a general. She leans way military in her opinions, and as you can tell by clashing with her sister on, you know, whether or not to train Diana and her reasons behind it. And I happen to think that she was correct in this case, but Robin Wright did an amazing job of portraying that character as a believable but incredibly strong and mythical uh, general. And I forget exactly who made this comment, and I'm sure multiple people have, but I could easily see a 300 style movie made with Antiope as the main character.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, the whole idea. Like, wouldn't it be great to have a Amazon film 300 style, basically, with them? It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'd totally watch that. You could do the backstory that Hippolyta tells Diana about the war, the final war of the Amazons before they're on Themyscira, where they free themselves from man, and you could totally do that. I mean, that would be brilliant, because I agree with you. Both her, Antiope, and Hippolyta were very good characters, very different characters, but I really enjoyed the portrayal, and I feel like they got people of gravitas to play those roles, so you immediately kind of felt that, so you didn't necessarily need that built in. Like, you didn't have to spend a ton of time with them to feel like they were important. So I was very happy with both of those characters, and really would actually like to, like, it'd be great to see more of them. And kind of glad that Nicole Kidman did not get cast as Hippolyta, because that was originally who was going to be that. She'll actually be in Aquaman, as Aquaman's mother. I thought Connie Nielsen, obviously we know her from Gladiator, as Commodus's sister, was just a really good choice, because she just for some reason she fits that kind of role really well.
She does, yeah.
I didn't realize Nicole Kidman was was gonna get cast over that. I can't see that.
Yeah,
Me either.
I could see her as being the Atlantean queen that will be the mother of
yeah.
Because she normally has red hair anyway.
That's true, yeah.
So I totally think that works much better. I think Connie Nielsen was just the right choice for this role. No,
I agree. I totally agree. It's just I'm just trying to picture it, and I'm like, I can't see it. I was like, I'm glad that they didn't do that, because I mean, I love her. She's a great actress, but she's more of a drama actress than an authoritative actress. You know what I mean? Like, you know, to command something like a character like that. Or I don't know. Maybe I've never seen it before. All right, there you go. I've never seen her do anything beyond what she's done, you know, drama wise. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it would have just been. I think she could do it. I don't think it's out of her range. I just think that after seeing Connie Nielsen and knowing what she can do, I think she pulls it off. Because too, you know, one of the things I loved about the movie, and I've seen it a few times now already, was watching Connie Nielsen when Diana is a little girl and she's wanting to learn how to fight, and she's talking about the God Killer, and the faces that Connie Nielsen makes are perfect because she knows the secret. She knows what Diana is talking about the God Killer. It's not a sword. She's already looking at the God Killer. It's her daughter. And, like, she just plays that weight on her shoulders really, really well, because it's small and it's subtle. And so if you go back and see the film, and I hope everybody will, it's one of those things where when you know the secret, you watch the actress's portrayal, and it's really interesting. So to watch Robin Wright's character of Antiope and Connie Nielsen's character Hippolyta go back and forth about what's best for the God Killer, I think it makes for a really good portrayal, and it's worth definitely a rewatch, because the choices the actresses make are really nice. So
I need to go and watch it again.
Yeah, we're talking about it right now, and I'm like, I just want to go to the theater and watch Wonder Woman again, but we're podcasting, so we'll stay and we'll finish it, and then maybe afterward.
It was a close call. We came this
it was
close to just all leaving.
Yeah. Yep, this close. What did y'all think of Steve Trevor's three friends? We had, Sammy and Charlie and Chief.
I love Chief. I love all three of them. Don't get me wrong, but out of the three, I love Chief, especially when he starts talking about how he's free. Given the time frame of when this movie took place, obviously this is pretty fresh from the relocation of Indians into reservations and whatnot. But I absolutely love that part of that part of the movie when he starts talking about his own people and that he's in the middle of a war. He's not taking any sides, but he's free, and I can't even tell you how much. I don't think my daughter understood that, but I've been telling her a lot about our heritage and whatnot, and our background is Native Americans, so Muscalera Indians in New Mexico, and I absolutely love that piece that they were able to put something like that into the movie. It was very meaningful to me, but otherwise the rest of them were great.
That I really like what you said, Richard, and I thought that was really important too, because the way that him and Steve are still able to be friends,
right?
When that is so, like you said, it's still kind of fresh for them. It hasn't been that long since Steve's people took the land away from Chief's people,
right? And it just seemed like he wasn't taking any vengeance or anything like that,
right? Right.
And it's just what it is now, unfortunately. And now he's doing what he needs to do in order to. Obviously his loyalty to. It's perfect that he proves that his loyalty to him is that hey, I'm here to help him out, and yeah, he may be for hire, but still, it's his loyalty is there. You can completely see it.
And that does not get lost on Diana too, who I read in her look of, when she's being told, well, his people did that to my people, and it is a recent thing. I think her expression is more of a, they're still talking to each other and acting like friends. I think she's actually baffled by the idea that they can be friends and that it's not, oh, well, this one person's people. I think that was like a dawning moment on her of, there isn't just this one bad guy, Ares. It's part of the thing that starts to teach her that bad things are done by multiple people, and that sometimes, it's not just the one bad guy influencing everybody else, and it's not just everybody being bad or one particular group over the other. And so I think that starts playing in her subconscious mind a bit throughout the movie.
Well, and I like that you pull that up, because I think each of these characters is able to teach Diana something. I think you're absolutely pulled out that the way in which a Chief is able to influence Diana in such a good way by showing forgiveness, and that, like you said, maybe there's good and bad to everybody. Maybe it's not just like, this clear delineation. You're good, you're bad, I love the way that Charlie kind of shows her the brokenness of people who have been in war, and like the ghosts that he sees, the way it haunts him, the things that he's done. I thought that was beautiful. I really liked that actor, but I also love the way in which she helps kind of pull him out of that, by still making him feel valuable, even when he isn't able to perform the one thing he's there to, which is a sharpshoot in that scene. She still makes him feel of value and loved and cared for. And then I really liked the way that Sammy is able to talk to her about how, we're all fighting our own battles. I'm fighting mine. Charlie's fighting his. Chief, Steve, everybody here, even you, Diana. We all have our personal battles to fight in life, because basically what he's saying, life isn't fair. But we make the best of it, and we try to change it where we can. And I thought all three of those characters had such a great way. They don't have a ton of screen time, but they're able to affect the life of Diana, and she's able to affect their life. And I just liked seeing the way that played out. And it's one of the things that I enjoyed the most in the rewatches was seeing those little moments between those three men and Diana and the way that they they impact each other's lives. It's kind of beautiful, actually.
I definitely think so. How to put this? It's very refreshing to see that as much as they can be awed by Diana, they also all recognize how naive she is and how new to the world that she is, and they're not afraid of interacting with her as a human being, and not because they're men and they're more powerful in a day and age where that kind of the idea that men could be better than women or more professional or more capable at war, but they just interacted with her as a human, and it went a long way towards shaping how she viewed humanity, because she saw their flaws, but she saw their friendships with each other and the way that they tried to look out for her and the fact that they followed her into the no man's land. And I don't know, it was just adorable.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because again, they have this relationship that's for mutual benefit. You know, they're able to teach Diana things without being, I don't think anybody's going to say they're mansplaining to her. They're just able to lovingly show her what the world is like through their own lives, through their own experience, through who they are without hiding it. And she's able to do kind of the same thing for them, to show them that this kind of, I guess, more angelic presence in a lot of ways, you know, like she is kind of like an angel in their presence. And I really liked the way that worked. So, the last two characters, we have people that are identified as villains in the movie, and they're pretty villainous. Ludendorff and Maru, or Dr. Poison. I mean, when they're laughing about those guys going for the gas mask that isn't going to work, that is pretty evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was a kind of a terrifying scene when you realize, they're not testing it to see if it will work. They're hoping that it fails.
Okay, so a little bit of personal background on this one, actually. So my military background is nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons detection and disposal as well. So when they started talking about mustard gas, I knew all about it, because when we did training, this was back in the 80s, but like they used to use mustard gas or some kind of tear gases, but it was like a low yield. They used to put it on your skin, and then it'd like bubble up. And basically that's ultimately what happens inside your lungs, is that it bubbles up inside your lungs, and then it pops, and then that's how you die. It's dry land drowning, basically, in a sense. Yeah, it was very villainous, because I have seen lots of videos, because they showed us a video of how serious it is, because they train us with actual live agents in the chemical school, and they showed us a video of how serious it is. Basically, if you see someone's like eyes like drowsing or something like that, which is one of the symptoms for nerve agent exposure, they do everything. You know, they strip you down, bleach you, freaking everything. It's crazy on how serious it is, and it just brought back so many memories. Sometimes haunting memories. I'm not trying to scare.
Yeah,
no
kidding.
I'm not trying to scare anyone, but like they showed that training video, because I mean, like the Air Force, Marine Corps, the Army, Coast Guard, everyone, Navy. I don't want to miss out anyone. Basically goes to the chemical school in Fort Leonard Wood, and it's very, very real stuff that's scary. I mean, it's amazing that it even was invented in the first place. So, but like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, the science was a little off, but I just said, screw it. I'll take it.
It's a comic book
I took
movie.
it. I was like, no, it's not. It's sulfur based. No. But yeah, it's
Well, and that was the thing that I really like. One, Ludendorff is a real general from World War One. He doesn't actually die, if I remember my history correctly. Them using that real history, I thought, was really cool, and making them kind of the villains here at the very end of World War One, which I thought was really cool too. That they're placing it at the time when it doesn't make it seem like Wonder Woman's ending the war. Like, she's not the one who causes World War One to end, but she's a part of a mission that helps keep it from spreading even worse. But they're already at that armistice stage that's trying to sign the armistice, and I just those two characters, that villainy of being okay with like mass murdering people and the horrors of World War One. I'm glad we saw that on screen because it's kind of a war that gets forgotten. But the things that mankind did to each other in that war is some of the worst things that we've ever seen in war. Like you talked about, Richard, the fact that this gas was even invented and used on people is just pretty horrific. And it connects very well with the whole part of, Ares and the god of war. And so I liked the way that those two characters, fit in the film. And I also liked that a lot of people I've talked to were actually really shocked that Ludendorff was not Ares. Like, I was surprised that so many people that I've heard talk on podcasts or just in general in my life, I've talked to friends and they were really shocked that, and what I love is that they didn't give that away in the trailer.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was wonderful. The fact that was a secret for people, and unless you figured it out during the movie, which, I kind of did, but that's okay. It didn't ruin anything for me that I did. The fact that they hadn't showed you or given you really any hint in the trailers that Ludendorff wasn't the bad guy was great, I thought.
I agree. I was the only one in my family, though, who partway through the movie started thinking that he might not actually be Ares, though. And then I guess more than halfway through, I switched back to thinking, I guess he is Ares. But I don't know what it was about. I just don't remember.
Sir
his
Patrick?
name. Yes.
Sir Patrick.
Okay, I was going to say.
There was at some point, less than halfway through the movie, where I thought that he might be a villain. And then I thought, maybe, this is the actual real bad guy. We're not sure who he is yet. And then I went back to thinking that Ludendorff was the true bad guy because, he's a real historical figure, too, that's known for his evilness as well.
Well, I think that's a great time for us to talk about the God of War and just kind of dive into the fact that they do that switch where it's not who you think. The devil's in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. When they were starting to get to that point when they're in that watchtower, and Chris Pine's character was Steve. I'll just say Steve. Steve was basically saying like, well, maybe evil is within man as well, and whatnot. It started to make me think that what a great villain that would be. Like, Ares was never there, but you see him like in the shadows, sort of thing. Like as a puppet, as the puppet master. When it was getting to that point to almost the ending, and then of course the general comes up, I was thinking that like maybe a spirit coming out of his body or something like that, as like for like Hades, like he took over his body for whatever reason to fight Diana and then survive and live on and and we'll see him on another movie. But to kill him, come on, that's the only part I didn't like. That was probably the only part I didn't like, that he died. It's the whole villain problem that I have with most comic books now. That why do they have to die? Why can't they survive and come back in another movie like Iron Man did with the 10 Rings, or or like Loki or something like that? Why can't it be something like that? Why do we have to have an absolute he dies in this movie and then that's it? We don't hear about him. And then what? War ends or something like that? Or now?
Well, and I think I get what you're saying too, because I mean, in the comic books, Ares is a character that's around You know, they either have to put him in chains or something, or, you know, they hold him at Themyscira in chains, that kind of thing.
Right.
I didn't have a problem with the fact that he died. What I loved is what he represents, though. Because that whole conversation that Steve and Diana have, when what I love about the way Chris Pine plays the role is he's so flummoxed about how to explain to Diana the complexities of human nature in like the 3 seconds that they have. Like, he can't do it. But when he blurts out, but maybe we're all to blame. Maybe there isn't just one guy. Maybe this is just us. I thought, what a powerful statement for today. What if it's not just one person to blame? What if it's not just, oh, thanks, Obama, or oh, thanks, Trump? Like, what if all of us are in this together and really we're all at fault? Like, what a really good message, because that was the other great thing about Ares is he is a villain, and he says it himself, I whisper things in their ears. He's basically like their little shoulder devil. He whispers in their ears. He gives them ideas, but he doesn't make them use the weapons. He doesn't make them do the things. Like he says, they start these wars on their own. Like, this is their doing with their world, and what it seemed to say is, man isn't good. He can be, but a lot of times what he chooses to do with the world around him is to do bad things. And, it was great because at the same time, as Sir Patrick, he is calling for peace at all costs, right? He's calling for this armistice. You know what that armistice is going to do? He knows what it's going to do. It's going to lead Germany to want to revolt against the extreme measures that we put on Germany in that armistice at the end of World War I that leads to Hitler in World War II. Angel of light that's really the angel of darkness. And like, that is a really powerful villain, that his goal is to make people think they're doing the right thing, but they're actually doing the worst thing possible, because peace at all costs is not really the answer here. Because it blew my mind that the thematic elements that go around the villain of Ares and what he's doing. Because he's not necessarily all wrong in what he says to Diana. You know what I'm saying, Bethany?
Yeah, I mean, he is partly right, and that's why at first she's tempted, because, I mean, and if you know any history at all, you know how, looking back on it, it seems ridiculous that World War I happened. Like, why would these countries have made these silly promises to each other? Why would this tiny little spark have ignited a war? And Diana is looking on all of those things too, and from more of an outside perspective. So it makes, what he says makes a lot of sense if you don't have a heart, and if you don't have the ability to be gracious, and you don't have the ability to forgive and understand that despite their flaws, that humanity is worth something.
Well, and it's so interesting to me, too, because when he shows Diana, he's like, look what they've done to this world. They took paradise and just obliterated it. And that kind of idea of we can bring back paradise, you and I together, like it's kind of the same. Honestly, it's the same thing that Clark faces in Man of Steel, when Zod is showing him, he's like, we could make Krypton anew. Forget all these people. They're not worth your time, like, they're not worth your protection. Just join us and we can remake our world anew. And it's kind of that same temptation in the wilderness kind of thing, where what they're saying isn't necessarily all wrong, but their solution is all wrong. And I absolutely adored that was the motivation for Ares. And so that when he reveals himself to Diana and she has to make the choice to what is she going to do about it, I thought that was really powerful, because before that, when she realizes that mankind is still going with this war thing, and she thinks she's killed Ares, she's like, nope, I'm done with you guys. Like, she lets Steve and the rest of the troop go off by themselves. Like, she's just standing there on that tower. She's done. She's done with this hero thing because humanity really isn't worth it to her. And so like, he tempts her at just the right time.
I actually also think that was partly the reactionary shock of discovering the truth, or more like the truth was always there for her to see it, but having it come around and slap her in the face because she was denying what was right in front of her, in huge part due to her upbringing, and definitely in part due to her personality and tendencies as a character. But she in some ways was facing what she could no longer deny, and I think that was her reaction to it. So I think even if Ares hadn't shown up at some point, she probably would have come around. But he pushed her right when she was at her weakest to see if she would break.
One of our listeners, Chris Bacca, he's been listening to the show for a long time. He's on the Babel Conference, and he brought something up. I had posted my review on Facebook, and he wrote something really poignant. I loved it. This whole idea of, for Diana, about listening, and that Diana kind of selectively listens, and she hears what she wants to hear about things. And I think this is what gives her a lot of that naivety. She doesn't hear when her mother says there's so much you don't understand. She doesn't pick up on the fact that Steve's like, oh, that's great. You know, like that you're not quite getting it, and that she never really listens to anybody, and that it's the moment in which she is looking at Maru on the ground. She's holding a tank ready to smash it into her, basically. And she remembers what Steve told her. Like, she hears for the first time what Steve told her about, I'm going to go save today. You can save the world. And she sees what humanity is capable of in Steve, which is he will make the ultimate sacrifice to make sure that, 50 square miles of this countryside, people don't die. He's willing to make that sacrifice. She sees that mankind has the ability to be good. And they have that conversation before, too, where she puts it all together, where he says, maybe it's not about what we deserve. Maybe we don't deserve you being here. Maybe we don't deserve your protection. But maybe it's not about what we deserve. Maybe it's about what you believe. And in that moment, Diana hears all that he said. She puts it all together, and that's where she can tell Ares, man is everything that you say they are. But there's so much more. And it makes that relationship that she's had with Steve and with these other three guys and her experiences in this real world, she finally hears and sees for the first time. And I thought that was really cool because I don't know about you guys, but I think we all in this world kind of have a problem with selectively listening to what we want to hear and believing what we want to believe about things, even if it's not necessarily true.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that because she's doing that the whole movie. And when her eyes are opened, her ears are opened, she still chooses to help us, even though we totally don't deserve it.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I actually didn't even realize that that scene, how powerful that scene is. That she wasn't really listening, and it makes sense. Thinking back on it, I didn't pick that up. I mean, I was wondering why. I was like, what? She got blasted by some kind of bomb or something like that, and she can't hear now. She has tinnitus or something like that. But then, reading that, I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, and it is a very powerful statement for him to say something like that. So, Dolly, I hear you, Matt.
I don't hear you, Matt. I selectively listen to what you say.
I mean, most people do, honestly. Let's just be honest. Well, and what's so cool about that, on top of the whole idea of listening, was, Diana, at that moment, there's a time to fight and a time to love, and I think she realizes that those necessarily aren't always at opposite ends of the spectrum. Because I mean, she's looking in the face of evil there as Ares is saying, look at how awful these people are. Look at what they do. I mean, and she's looking at Morrow, who's created this gas that is so awful, people will combust because of it. And she still chooses to love us, even our most unworthy, and to help us, because she knows, yes, humanity is flawed and evil and can be just the worst thing on the planet. She's looked that in the face, but she's also looked at what we can be, which is one of the best representations, which happens to be Steve. And he's willing to die to make sure that other people are safe, which is the best version of humanity. So she knows the best and the worst, and she still chooses to help us. And, like, I love that that's how she can say she's fighting for love. She's fighting to give people a better opportunity with Ares gone, to make sure that we have a better chance, hopefully. And she becomes kind of that better angel of our nature, encouraging us to stand up for what's right, even if it's not necessarily the most popular thing to do, or just to make sure we do the right thing. I really liked that, because the picture of her staring at Morrow, and like, that woman is pretty evil. Like, that's the worst of humanity she's looking at.
But she's got a cool mask.
She does have a cool mask. Yeah. I thought that was a really powerful moment for the movie. I wanted to ask you guys about one thing that struck me about the movie that I thought was really cool. And it's kind of back more towards the beginning of the movie, when Diana is going to leave, and she's talking to her mother, and her mother doesn't want her to go. And she says, "But who will I be if I stay?" And I really liked that question about what that means about responsibility, and that kind of ties into that whole theme of us. We're all in this together.
I want to know how she was able to hide that long while looking that young all the time. You know what I mean? Like, what, she bounced job to job or something like that, changed names like she's like a Highlander or something like that.
I mean, I think you probably hit it on the head. She probably watched Highlander to get tips.
Chopping heads off in alleyways.
Yeah.
To stay young. No, yeah, I definitely. I really think that they should have stayed with World War II, but that's my own. That's my own little, because I think World War II was more horrific than World War I was, and like you said, it is a forgotten war. It is. It really is. Just like Korea was, or is.
I think that the thing that I like most about Diana is that in the face of any setback, any surprise, any bad occurrence, personal conflict, family conflict, having her ideals questioned or questioning her own ideals, in the face of everything, even when sometimes she pauses or hesitates or has the moment where she's not going to help humanity, in the end she always goes forward, and she doesn't need somebody else to kind of push her to be the hero or to cajole her into helping everybody. But in the end, out of her own character and her own nature, she just keeps moving. Like, she just keeps trying to do what she can tell is right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Bethany. Like, she knows what is right. Like, the Amazon's reason for being on the earth is to be an influence for man, and to show them a better way. And of course, too, when they are led to Themyscira and given Themyscira by Zeus as one of his last acts, and then of course given Diana as the god killer, their role is to protect the earth should Ares return. And Diana doesn't shirk that responsibility. Like, she takes that responsibility on herself. Yes, she doesn't fully understand the ramifications of all that she's doing, but she also knows that who will she be if she stays? If she doesn't pick up the mantle of responsibility, which is hers, what will she do? And it just really reminded me of the famous saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men or women to do nothing. And like, she has the ability to just stay on Paradise Island and, whatever. But she doesn't sit on the sidelines. And I thought that was so powerful because, as Steve talks about all the innocents that are killed, the women, the children, like everything that's happening, and how often do we just kind of stick our heads in the social media sand and pretend to have outrage about things, and that's really meaningless. But Diana takes action. She takes responsibility, and she takes action. And I think that was what was really important, is that conversation she has with Steve, where he says, my daddy said two things. You can do nothing or you can do something. And I already tried nothing. And that he understands he might not be able to change the course of the future by himself, but he sure as hell ain't going to sit on the sidelines and do nothing. Like, I loved what the movie was saying, is that we have to take responsibility. And yes, we might not be able to change the world all by ourselves, but we have the opportunity to change something about this world, even if it's just those around us. And that's, I think that's huge. So, and what a great message for little girls and little boys and their parents and everybody else going to see this movie. I mean, that's definitely a great hero to be looking up to.
Totally agree. It's amazing what Eva's picked up just reading some of the comic books that I've shown her. Like, what was it? She was reading something. It was My Little Pony, I think it was, and yeah, friendship is magic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But like, she was like, oh yeah, this is my stories, Dad. This isn't a comic book, and I'm like, here's a comic book of all the Captain Americas and all that. It's the same thing. It was pictures and everything and words, just like what she was. And she's been reading some of the my old Captain America. Obviously, not the originals. I've got the essential books that she can thumb through.
Nice.
Yeah, so because I don't want. Those stay in a dark area in plastic. No one touches it, not even me. But like, I've been showing her a lot of the old Captain America. Some of my favorite comic books. I haven't dipped into Batman yet or anything like that. But some of the pure, I guess in a sense, good before he turns to.
Yeah, like your
agent.
Captain America is your Superman, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. Superman's another one. Superman's a great one. And it's great what the messages that she gets out of them. And I don't have many Wonder Woman comic books. I think I need to start doing that. I love the messages that a lot of the older comic books. I don't know about how much on the newer comic books nowadays, but like back like 20 years ago. There were great messages in all of these comic books that was very pure. That hey, this is what you need to do. Be kind to your own neighbor, sort of thing. And yeah, it was great messages. It was great. It's like the ending of G.I. Joe. They had a message at the end of it. The more you know.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's the thing I really liked, and that I have liked about the DC universe, and I just kind of want to move in to talk about the movie before we go into some ratings. But one of the things Patty Jenkins said, she has this great quote about the movie that she wanted to make, and I think it applies just to the DCU in general. She said, "Did you say cheesy? Cheesy's one of the words banned from my world. I'm tired of sincerity being something that we're afraid of doing. It's been like that for 20 years, that the entertainment and art world has shied away from sincerity. Real sincerity, because they feel they have to wink at the audience because that's what kids like. We have to do these stories now. The world is in crisis. I wanted to tell a story about a hero who believes in love, one who is filled with love and who believes in change and the betterment of mankind. I believe in it. It's terrible when it makes so many artists afraid to be sincere and truthful and emotional and relegates them to the too cool for school department. Art is supposed to be about bringing beauty to the world. And what I liked about Wonder Woman and what I personally enjoyed about the DCU and in general is just the fact that there is a real sincerity to their movies. They take the characters and the world they're in seriously, and they're not spending the time winking at the camera, because I think they are trying to tell us something, like you're talking about, Richard. Like, they have a point to get across in their movies, you know, and I really like that. And I think that is one of the things that a lot of people are responding to in Wonder Woman. They like the fact that there's not a point in this movie where Chris Pine or Gal Gadot kind of looks at the camera and gives you that big old wink like, we know it's ridiculous, just join it. No, there's none of that. This is a story that's meant to inspire us and to show us something better. And I just thought that was really cool. So, and I really appreciate her having the guts to share that as a director. You know, I think because that's not been the general thing in Hollywood. I wanted to ask you guys about the movie itself. And one, I've heard a lot of things about, you know, maybe the slow-mo fighting. I'm wondering what y'all's opinion are.
So slow motion seems to come in and out of popularity fairly frequently in movies and in different movie years and genres. I think it worked for this film because it did add to the grandeur of some of the giant fight sequences and those such things. And I understand that it seemed a bit too grand sometimes, or kind of the opposite of gritty. Like, pretty much the exact opposite of, say, a fight sequence from any of the Bourne movies, like the Jason Bourne movies. But I think that superhero movies tend to feel very different. So this is not a Deadpool. This is not a Dark Knight movie. This is Wonder Woman. And it felt in place to me for the style of the film and the kind of launch back into the past in a larger-than-life picture. I think it really comes down to personal preference, though, because if it bothers you, it bothers you, and it takes away from the movie. If you like it, then you like it, and it adds to your enjoyment.
Overall, I really like this movie. It's... Yeah, I had a problem with the slow mo. I think it was too much. It wasn't. I think that like the main battles, you know, obviously with Ares and maybe some, you know, obviously her crossing no man's land, which was awesome. I absolutely love that. It's just too bad they didn't lay artillery shells on her too. That would have been awesome, even more awesomer. But I had so many ideas pop in my head on what was going on in that time frame when it came to weaponry, that there could have been so much more explosions. But anyway, I didn't like how much there was. I liked it, but I thought it was just a little bit overboard on some of the things that they were doing. CGI to me was a need a little bit more work. Whoever did it, it looked like it was.
I want to back you up there real quick, Richard. I completely agree with you, and part of that is that this movie, I think, was like $150 million.
Oh, was it?
So it was a lot less than like Batman v Superman,
okay.
or so I absolutely agree with you. They should have spent more money on the CGI to perfect it, because it would have looked even better. I mean, I totally, utterly agree with you that was one thing they should have done better.
Right, and exactly, it's a comic book movie. Come on, there's not much you could do in real life that you could do more with CGI. Right. Yeah, so I was like, come on, guys, like, let's think with our noggins. But like, yeah, I mean, I had a major problem with it. I mean, obviously, like the beginning of the Amazonian, seeing them fighting and everything and training. I saw a few repeats. I don't know if you saw that. There was a few in the background that I saw that were repeats. I don't know if they did that. Maybe they didn't think anyone would notice. I don't know. But I saw it the first time around. Yeah, overall it was a great movie. I actually really liked it a lot. Unfortunately, Eva fell asleep through it because she got bored right around when they went to London. I think it was. No. It was after that. It was the village. After the whole scene with the liberating the village, she got really bored and basically fell asleep. But she loved everything before that. Without actually thinking about it, after the fact. I really had a problem with the main villain, but other than that, I really like this film. I really do. I mean, I'm not gonna. No offense, I'm not going back to see it because it's probably gonna be something I'll watch on DVD. But yeah, I mean, I really liked it, especially first time around.
Quick question for both of you: what format did you guys see it in?
I saw it in 3D, in 2D, and then Dolby Atmos.
We saw it in regular 2D.
Okay. I did 3D XDs. Yeah. And the theater screen that I saw it on was actually a really high quality screen. And I've noticed several times when I go and see movies there that I don't notice imperfections or maybe not so nice CGI or awkward shots as much because the screen makes up for it a lot.
It's the unicorn power. It's the unicorn power in the screen.
It tingles, as they say.
I'm so glad you realized what I was saying.
Meanwhile, like 95% of the audience is just like, what?
So I liked the fight scenes and I liked the slow-mo, but I liked it because it reminded me so much of a comic book. The splash page that you get where there is that amazing pose of the character doing this incredible thing, and I felt like that the slow-mo gave you that feel like I'm watching a living comic book, and for me that's why it worked. I also thought that it made the Amazon fight style seem very graceful and elegant, but also will kick your ass. I mean, you don't really have a chance. And so that's the other thing. I just felt like it worked to make Wonder Woman's fight style feel different than what we've gotten in a lot of comic book movies recently. And it separate her. Two, her lasso is so awesome. I mean, I absolutely love her lasso. I think it's just, that was really cool. And then, I mean, Themyscira is an incredible looking place. I saw some of the pictures. I have the art of book, and I was looking at the city in Italy that they based the main city of Themyscira on, and it's very cool because so much of that is real, and then the rest is digital replacement or augmentation of it, and they did such a good job of bringing all of that to life. I think that was the thing I really liked, is I felt immersed in the world. I felt immersed in her world, and then, of course, being thrown into the trenches in World War I. I felt like all of that felt really good. So, yeah, I think this is and the music too. I didn't even mention the music, but the soundtrack for this movie is great. They really use the Wonder Woman theme well from Batman v Superman and bring that over here, as well as adding some more themes to this that I really have enjoyed listening to the soundtrack over the last week now.
The music is so good.
Yeah, isn't it? Doesn't it make you want to go kick somebody's butt?
Yeah.
Or run like a marathon? I mean, maybe not run a marathon.
I don't know
Let's
about
not
that
go
far,
crazy.
dude.
Yeah, no, I just, all in all, I think the movie, it works really well and it flows together really well. So, Richard, if you're gonna rate Wonder Woman, we could do it out of 10. What do you think?
Out of 10. I'll give it an 8.5.
Nice. That's really good, man.
I mean,
I was not expecting that.
I know. Don't get me wrong. I like I said, I found holes in when I really thought about it. But the reality is that, I mean, was I entertained? Yeah.
Are you not entertained?
Oh yeah, that would be awesome if something like that was there. Oh gosh, that would be great. But yeah, I was entertained. Don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, there was some dry spots, but I mean, it didn't take away from the overall movie, and there were some pretty epic parts of it. So I really liked it overall.
Awesome. What about you, Bethany?
He stole my thunder. 8.5 as well. I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and I loved what sort of a future this can set up for DC in carrying on with some of their more character-focused movies. And I thought that the first really cool, modern, female-led superhero movie was a massive success. And I did not go into this thinking, oh, it's Wonder Woman. I've loved her all my life. I've read all of her comics, and I'm going to love this movie no matter what. You know, I went into it being enough of a skeptic to be like, to have a high expectations because of what I'd heard. But just going into it as just a normal superhero movie fan in general. So, but it was so much better than I thought it would be. It really was.
Well, okay, if y'all are going for 8.5, I'm gonna have to say 9. Like, I unabashedly, I'm unashamed of sincerely loving this movie. I absolutely love it, and I thought it was so well done. I thought that they had put so much thought into the character, into bringing her to life. I think, Bethany, you're right on cue, the fact that they understood what was writing on this. This is the first major superhero female character coming to screen. We cannot screw this up. Or we might hurt other people's chances. And I think what it is they deliver a movie that it brings to life the character of Wonder Woman, that pays homage to different parts of her origin story, whether it's she's made out of clay or that she's a demigod. It kind of brings all of that stuff together. It makes it work. And it's... I think, Gal Gadot was talking at a conference or something. I saw her. It was online. It was on YouTube. And she was saying, she kind of was thinking about giving up acting. And then Zack Snyder called. And the rest is history. She's Wonder Woman. And I was even reading the Art of book, and Patty Jenkins talked about, she inherited the casting of Wonder Woman, and yet she cannot think of anybody better to play the role. And I was talking to a family on my third time seeing it this last weekend, and the mom and the daughter were there, the teenage daughter, and Mom turns to me afterwards. She's like, it was so good. I can't believe it's taken this long. And so we had a little conversation about, I'm so glad, though, that it actually took this long, because we're making a movie at a time where it looks good. We mentioned, Richard, the CGI could have been better, and it should have been better. But I also think it was the right person to play this role, because I love Gal Gadot, and I think she plays the role perfectly. And to me, as much as for so many people, Christopher Reeve is Superman, she's Wonder Woman. And I absolutely adore this movie, and I hope that if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're listening, because we spoiled it rotten, but if you have seen it, I hope that you'll go back and see it and support movies like this, because, if you like a movie and it's kind of a unique type of film, go see it as many times as you can, because money is what talks in Hollywood. So if you like this, let them know you want more of this. And I'm right there with you, Bethany. Makes me really excited for, Aquaman. And I'm actually excited to see, even more excited to see Justice League, with having Diana Prince back in that. And I loved the way that this film, we didn't even talk about the way this film bookends itself, where she's gotten the picture from Bruce, who's given her the original of the picture that's taken that we saw in Batman v Superman, and kind of showing her revival of being a hero came from that experience with Bruce and Clark at the end of Batman v Superman, and will lead us into the Justice League. What I liked, though, is that there's only those minor connections, so pretty much anybody can go in and see this movie. That's great, because you should be able to just go into Wonder Woman's origin story, not feel like you've had to see 12 films.
Actually, yeah. I would say that that's one thing that DC kind of has Marvel beat with. Because at this point, yes, you can see a Marvel film without seeing the others, but you'll be missing a lot of significance.
I think you have a good point there, especially with some of the films, for sure. I mean, I think if you go into Civil War, and that's the first one you've ever seen, you're not going to get as much out of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as much like, well, Lord of the Rings or maybe Star Wars or something. I had a friend who tried to watch Lord of the Rings by starting with Return of the King, and they're like, yeah, I mean, I never really liked it. I didn't know what was going on, and everything seemed so weird, and I was just like, no.
Of course it seems so weird. You came in part 3.
Yeah,
That's
and I was
my
like,
favorite
start
one.
One continuous
start
story.
from the beginning, and then tell me
It's
what
like
you think.
starting. It's like starting a book with the third part of the last third of the book.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm so glad I got a chance to talk about this, and I am more than ecstatic if you haven't figured out that Wonder Woman was a triumph. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for supporting the network, all the people that do on Patreon. I have some great associate producers here through Patreon, Ken Tripp and Davis Grayson, incredible gentlemen who have been supporting the show for a very long time, but not just me and this show, but the entire network. This is, as I've said before, it's an expensive enterprise. It costs a lot of money to produce all the shows that we do each and every week for you here on Trek FM and put those out to you. And so we need your help because we can't do it alone. And we have a way to do that over on patreon.com/TrekFM. You can see all the ways that we love to give back to you. We love to give you extra content, bonus content, or the access to content, producers credits. I mean, there's so many ways we're trying to give back to you on top of bringing you great quality shows for your support. And honestly, every little bit helps. So go to patreon.com/TrekFM and see how you can be part of the team. Now, Bethany, thank you so much for joining us for talking about Wonder Woman. If more people would like to talk to you about Wonder Woman or anything else, where can they find you out there on the interwebs?
They can find me on Twitter at Bethany L. Blanton and on multiple other social medias by the same name, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. And then I also do stuff for the Star Wars Report, and that's StarWarsReport.com.
And Richard, if anybody wants to talk to you about comics or Wonder Woman, obviously you have a ton of comic knowledge. You're a good comic book fan, but you're a big Star Wars fan and so many other things. Where can people find you?
Well, they can listen to me on Earl Grey, the dedicated podcast to the next generation with Amy Nelson and Lee Hutchinson. And you guys can also find me on the Babel Conference. I'm periodically pop in here and there, and I'm also on Twitter, and my handle is xrandom.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at MattRushing02. You can also find me on Instagram at MRushing. I'm here on the network doing The Orb with Chris Jones. We're talking about Deep Space Nine. We have some new episodes out. We've got some more coming for you, so keep a weather eye out for that. You can also find me on thenerdparty.com. I'm doing a couple of different shows there. One, I do Aggressive Negotiations with John Mills. We talk Star Wars. It's a blast. Make sure you check it out. And I'm also doing Owl Post, a Harry Potter podcast with Drea Kaufman as we walk through each and every chapter of the Harry Potter series of books. And so I hope you'll join us there. And you can find all of those on Apple Podcasts or wherever you do get your podcasts. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And y'all come back now here.